I think Teams ke post so we have mentioned it as web application and frameworks, but like we are actually discussing the server side of web application. So I just renamed it to application servers and frameworks. So firstly, I'll try to explain like what are the like common components that are present in an application server. Okay. So and so before this, I'll try to give you a walkthrough of like how a client and server behaves in the internet world. Okay. So you are in a browser. Okay. You are opening Antino.io website. Okay. So once you hit this URL, a HTTP get call will be made, and it'll this particular request will go through maybe at the first it'll hit the router that is present in your like house, or if you're sitting in an office, it'll hit the router, and then so it is able to navigate through the internet because so once this you enter antino.io in the browser, so there is something called a DNS server. Okay. So what happens is DNS server will find out the address corresponding to the antino.io, and let's say the address could be some 123.32.98.120. So this address is understandable by each node that is present in the internet. Okay. So it goes to your router. Router means like it is connected to your internet service provider, right? So this guy understands where to find the server of a antino.io. Okay. Now it will navigate through like routers, and then the like maybe if it is a phone internet through the mobile towers and all, and then it will finally reach the our server. Okay. So maybe like let's consider that it is deployed on AWS 180 EC2 server. So now the request has come here. So since the the URL is slash, which is equivalent to home, so we'll fetch the content corresponding to this route. We'll let I hope it will be an HTML file. Head, body, and then server will build this response and give it back to the internet. Now internet again will navigate this particular information packet through the internet the way it came back, and it will give back to the browser, and then it will now browser not only sends and gets information through the internet, it also understands how to parse the HTML and paint the content on the browser screen. So and you know dot so this is what has happened right now. I just typed antino.io here, and it has went to the Antino's server, fetched that HTML, and gave it to the browser, and browser has painted all that information. So I'll reload it one more time for you to understand what has happened here. So look at the series of requests. Look at the first request that has happened. This is the request. Look at the request URL: http www.antino.io get request, and it is a success response. And then let's have a look at the content. So this is the response. Server has given us an HTML, and browser knows how to parse this and render it in a meaningful way. This is what has happened. Okay. So now we'll discuss what do servers do when such requests come to the servers. Okay. So in this particular case, maybe we don't have all of this is static data, right? So there is no database involved here. Maybe we just wrote a big HTML file with some images, and it is like we are rendering it. But in some cases, we show dynamic content. We'll open working.com website. Now, when you are see, look at this particular request. Now, what has happened is the request went to housing.com's servers, and server pulled properties corresponding to HSR layout Bangalore, and then gave it back to the internet, and internet propagated that information till the browser, and browser painted it back. Okay. So here, like, so now, like, initially first we have made a request for antinode.io, and then we have made a request for housing.com, and then through the internet it is going to the servers. Okay, and it is coming back to the client. Okay, now we'll see how do servers process this request. Okay, so first I'll tell you like what are the like components that a server have. Server will have a source code. Source code means like sometimes we call it as like software, and like maybe in a layman times it are these are set of instructions that a machine understand, and it has like certain capabilities to follow. Okay, and we have source code, and we have databases for storing the data, and let's say if we are like building a complex system, maybe we'll have things like message brokers and queues. Okay, so we can have like all these type of components in a server. Okay, now whenever a request comes to this server setup, it will first go to the source code. Okay, and source code will see if there is any need for contacting the database. If there is, it will talk to database, fetch the data, and then process it and give it back to the internet. Okay, if it is a synchronous request, this is how it will work. And if it is a asynchronous request, it will a request will come here. Okay, it knows that it is an asynchronous request, and it will put a message in the queue, and like tell it back to the source code, and source code will tell the internet that the request has been processed. And now this message broker will process the request. Once it is finished, it will again contact to the internet saying that something has been done. Let's say it is we are sending an email. It will go like this. If you are sending a notification, so at a higher level, this is what happens. Like these are the types of things like web applications do. So this source code will have all sorts of code. Like first thing is to like uh, processing HTTP requests. The like something that is coming from the internet, it has to understand that what kind of request it is, and like how to like process and all. And it will have some static files like images. Okay, and it will have some files for like deployment and like a couple of things. Okay, now Okay, application server, database, primary database. Okay, now I'll so until this point, do you guys want to like ask anything at this, until this point? I'll explain like what do like application servers generally have in like in much more detail. Anybody want to ask anything here? Hello, Nikita?
So one point you can
Jayant?
explain more on like the difference between the subdomain and subdirectory. So if we are writing as using something as subdomain or it's using a subdirectory. Suppose we
Okay,
made
okay,
page like blog.intro.io versus intro.io/blog. So what are the
correct.
major differences in which case we should use subdirectory, in which case we should use the subdomain?
Okay. I didn't understand the subdirectory part. Can you tell me an example, like how you guys use
Yeah,
subdirectory?
suppose we want to host a a blog page. So maybe
Okay,
we
okay.
can use it intro.io/blog. And second option, we can create a subdomain like
Blog dot.
blog.intro.io.
Okay, okay. So this
So
or this versus blog dot antenna.
yeah,
Okay, these two, like what are the merits and demerits? Okay. So I think, see, there are certain things like when you're doing development, uh, if you're like going with this approach, option A, you don't need to make any changes on your DevOps side. You just include a route in your application framework and it will be deployed. If you want to go with such thing, you have to make an entry in your DNS records, and there is a extra effort involved in the DevOps side in terms of development. Okay, and for users, uh, so they must be on Antino like .io already. Now they want to go to blog. Okay, so now you must have placed this link somewhere in your website saying that, so like no, like more about us or something. So then you must redirect it to this one, and from here like you are going here. Okay, so like in this case also, like there, this is second point is navigation point of view. You have developed it and then you released it, navigation for the user. So then also like it won't make much difference. But when you are considering in terms of SEO, okay, I think there also like there is not much difference there, because see, SEO, when web crawlers read your content, okay, so they will try to identify, so what is your uh, domain strength is, and domain strength is ideally considered from your top level domain only, like only this part of the thing. But and if you are like using a subdomain, then SEOs will categorize your links, and they will be able to categorize them in a like in a separate bucket. So this would have a better impact on the SEO front. Other than that, like in other points, there won't, it doesn't make any difference. In only in development, like there is a one time thing that DevOps has to set up this blog dot in their like in the DNS records. I think like only difference that I see is SEO point of view.
okay.
SEO is, for those who don't know, it is a search engine optimization. So what happens is we want our websites to be discoverable, right? So see, this is, we have written that adding values by UX, and we want people to find out that Intino. There is a company called Intino, and they provide like some tech world and unmatched solutions, things like this. Now, whenever somebody is trying to find a team of engineers, somebody is searching in the like Google. in India. Maybe this is not the right word, but like maybe like Vinay, can you tell me like what kind of keywords would
Yeah, you
give
can
into
search
know
like best app development company in India. You can search like this.
first app development company in India. Company in India. Okay. So here, like ideally, like we can, if we are running ads, it will come up here. Otherwise, so it has to be like somewhere like so. In order to make our like content visible somewhere, so there are like many factors for our web pages to show up here for these particular words, but yeah. So SEO, what does it does is like web crawlers like Google, they crawl your content and see like maintain your content, and whenever Google a person searches in Google, they'll render the results based on the relevance. Okay. And here and like if you see links also here, right? www.hindustan.com. And here if we had gone with blog.antino.io, okay, then also I'm not very sure whether showing here like www.antino.io versus blog.io, which one is better. But so that will definitely impact SEO. I
Yeah, I think for the subdomain we have to create the separate backlinks for that. So
Separate, okay, separate backlinks,
so
okay.
that would be better, but effort would be more on creating backlinks for that.
Yeah, okay, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, we can go ahead to the
yeah, like next steps. Okay, thank you. So okay, so I'll okay. Okay, first I'll discuss about a normal HTTP requests that are coming to a server. Okay, so here in the source code, so we discussed that there are many components in our server. Like some code is responsible for interacting with the database, some code is responsible for doing this, and some code is responsible for processing the first steps of the HTTP request. Okay. So what people have done is, so they have written initially, people have written code in single files and manage them. But over time, they have identified certain components in uh, the code base, and they have assigned responsibilities. Okay. So the one of the widely used frameworks is MVC. So in this framework, you will have a component called controller, which is responsible for processing HTTP requests. Okay, whenever HTTP request is coming from the internet to the server application, it will controller will take the control, and then it will and we will write like where the next action should go. Okay, next in within the combination of models and view, this request will be processed. Okay, and whenever there is a data related request involved, the models will connect with the database, fetch the data back, and give it back. So the majorly like the code can be segregated into like three different components. One is like controller, which is responsible for processing the first steps of the request, and then based on the use case, a model and view will combinedly participate, and then give the control back to the controller, and controller will render the content. Okay. And I'll actually like give a walkthrough in the code base and explain like how the things are actually working. Okay. Let's move on to creating an application. So I'm creating a Ruby on Rails application. So the code will be in Ruby language, and the name of the framework is called Ruby on Rails. Okay. The way to create a application is you like give it like 1 more minute. I think you'll get done. Things are almost done. Okay, fine. Now we have an application called Pets PETS. I'll zoom in so that it's visible. Is it visible now? Okay. I'll
Yes,
go
it's
to the
clearly visible.
Pets application. Okay. So now what happened is it has generated uh, a working like a boilerplate of an application. Okay. So this is the source code. So the app will contain all the controllers part and models and views, and there are other directories and files also. Let's focus on these things first. So we have the like basic code to like start with. What I'll do is, and also there is an important file. It's called gem file. So these are the set of libraries that are part of this application now. Okay. So we call in Rails framework, they call as gems. Okay. So these are the packages in Node.js, they call them as packages. So these are the libraries that are used. So we have the code base now. The first step to start with this application is to install these libraries first. Okay. There is a there is something called a bundler, which helps us in like installing and running our applications in the context. So the first command is to run bundle install. So now it is run. So all these packages are installed in this application now. Now we can try running the application now. I'll try to run it at port 3030. Right, in full form. I'm trying. I'm starting the application server now on port 3030. The application is up. Let's check if it is responding or not. If you can have a look at this, what is printed here. So the server is listening on this particular address and this port. Maybe I'm mentioning things that you guys already know, but there must be like some people who are very new to things. Okay. So this says that like our application is up and running. Now we can write a new request. So what I'll do is, so as we discussed, the first uh, control will go to the controller. Any HTTP request that you make, if I do slash something, it will throw a no route matches because like the server does not understand what slash something is. Okay, we have to tell the controller that what is what. And before that, sorry, like I forgot to mention. So this is a there is something called a routes, which will maintain the list of routes. The slash something is okay, and and we'll tell where should it go. Alert. Okay, so now we have defined that whenever somebody is asking for something, go to the application controller and execute the something method. Okay, so we have defined this thing, and now let's see if it is working or not. Okay, so this is how an application servers respond to HTTP requests. Now we'll try to see how the database part of it. Okay, so let's create some pets inside it. Something called scaffolding in Rails, which will give you a database, a table for storing the data, and associated models and views will also be created. Rails का syntax याद है क्या? No, anyone remembers the Rails syntax? If I want to give ID and like name, might go wrong, but I wanted to. Okay, fine. So I just created an entity called pets. Okay, now you see it here. There is a new entry made here. Resources. This is actually equivalent to a set of such routes. Okay. Now I'll be able to access something called flash.pets. Okay, I have to start the server. Okay, migrations are pending. Saying that I have created a database, like defined migrations, but I haven't run them. There's something called migration, which will okay. So what I did was like a scaffolding, which will create an entity called pet. Okay. So whenever I'm creating an entity, many things get created. If you remember the MVC framework, so it has controller, it has model, it has views, and it is model will have an association with database. So when I try to create an entity called pet, okay, so each and every like a component will create its own files. Controller will be get created, a model will get created, a certain views will get created, and databases a table also. So we need So ideally, we should write like create pets in like some SQL statement in the database, right? So, but there is something called ORM in frameworks where you don't need to write a direct SQL. You just need to write these SQL like commands in the framework itself. Um, okay. So here, so these are the things that got created. One is route entry point for accessing the pets from the internet. And we have a table here. Okay. And if you go to models, you see that there is a model called pet that got created. And if you go to views, you will see that a pets a directory and there are like many files inside them. I'll tell you like what those things are. Okay. So frameworks, what they do is they generally create all necessary stuff that are related to this entity. Okay. Now, so we got an error, right? That like migration is not run. We'll run the migration first. So these tables got created. This one got created. Now, if you run our application again, we'll be able to access. That's what happened. Error आया. Give me some time. Anybody can help here? Missing entry error. वेब पैकर पे किसी ने काम किया क्या? हेलो guys. Okay, cool. I'll just delete those things for the sake of running it. Okay. So we have created a routes to access pets. What we can do is we can create a. So can you? Then I'll add one more pet. So this is what has happened now. So whenever I'm creating, whenever I'm like trying to create this one, so this is what is happening here. So the first request is going to the controller and then it is accessing the model part of code and it's creating an entry in the database and giving the response. And when we are accessing the base route, then it is like we are essentially listing down the all the entries that were present here. And one thing to be noticed here is Rails follow REST format. So like things will be treated in okay. So it each of everything will be treated as a resource. And to manage resources, we have a set of like actions like CRUD. I think most of you know it. Create, read, update, and delete. And all those actions are present here. So through new, you will be able to create. To show, you'll be able to read, and edit, you can do update, and through destroy, you can do destroy. So all these actions will be created through that scaffolding operation. We did not discuss about views. Okay, so the view part. So views are already created here. So that's why you guys are able to like view things. Okay, in case of Pony, you're able to view things, right? So you would have a corresponding view file there. So along with this, you can maybe write here. It is like name colon Pony, right? I'll convert it as at name is, then it will reflect. So like this is the uh, whenever I requested this thing, the request has gone to the controller part first. Okay, and then it has access model, and it took the help of view to build the HTML part, and then finally the view is rendered back to the front end. Okay, and other than this, we can add things like RabbitMQ to do delayed processing. So all these things are happening synchronously, right? The moment you're hitting the server is processing the things like right at the moment and rendering things back. So if we have a message broker like setup, things will be like scheduled and processed at the defined timeline. Okay. Okay. I think like we will move on to the next thing. Okay. So whenever we are creating a application server, so these are the things that we need to like keep in mind. So first thing is availability, which is very obvious. And while you are developing, we should always think follow something called component reusability. And this Rails frameworks follows this philosophy very thoroughly. So no a repetition of the code will be found in Rails, like at least in the boilerplate. If you repeat code, then like we cannot do anything. But this is what they want to follow. And next thing is security. Like, we have to make our application secure by like introducing an authentication and authorization. And uh, and we have to design our application such that these things are easy for us. We should be able to deploy them easily, and also like monitor and maintenance. I meant by, so we should be able to like take I mean like log the data and push the behaviors to analytics servers, and so that we can monitor them. And also like scalability, and also the microservice concepts will be coming here, and customizables, and like all these three two things combinedly are part of microservices. And also we should write our application such that they are testable. Okay. And like on top of all these things, we should always keep this in mind, that our request processing speed should be good, like whether it is synchronously or asynchronously. Okay, so I'll go back to that part where these things can be uh, discussed. Okay, so where do you think there'll be like more latency involved? So one second, I'll create a new. So we'll have model, oh, control, sorry. Amir is back. Amir, आप आ गए क्या?
Yeah, yes. Okay.
Okay, okay. So I'll just like mention few things and आपको control दे देना. So generally इसमें हमने like we have talked about controller, model, view, and we have database. Okay. And if there are any like message queuing and etc. thing. Okay. So whenever a request is, I'm talking about how to manage or requesting request processing speeds. Okay. So whenever a request comes here, it will stay in the go to the controller, and then it will make few interactions between model views, and there are other components, other files as well, channels or like helpers and things like that. Whenever you are just like accessing the source code itself, there won't be like much overhead on the response time. Okay. So whenever you are like accessing the database, this is a costly operation. So all the IO operations will take a lot of time. Okay. So whenever you are making a database call, make sure that whatever the SQL request that you have written is time efficient. Okay. So and like over time, if you so like this making your SQL and like database like faster, that itself is a like big topic. But always try to make sure that all the IO operations are like not taking like much time. Okay, so so whenever you are dealing like optimizing the response times, make sure that IO operations are like effectively managed. Okay, and and source code will never increase your overhead. Okay, but like there can be a point where you are just looping and sleeping like added sleepers inside the code, then it will definitely hamper the process. But otherwise, your request response times, if you have optimized IO operations and like perfect SQL queries, then your responses will be in the limits. So ideally, the response request response will be like response is expected in 100 milliseconds like time frame. Okay, yeah. And other than this, okay. So one thing we need to like for those who don't know, so they can follow this. So when we are deploying, the first thing we'll do is build the source code, which means so if it is a front end deployment, maybe you do obfuscation and all, and try to keep the size of those files like as minimal as possible. And on the like backend server side, so it depends upon the application to application. So if it is an Elixir, you will write into convert everything into beans, so that so during the build process, if you are since we generally write in a high level languages, they get converted into low level formats so that things can be run faster. And the next step would be to configure the environment. So so all those like AWS keys and also the like what kind of like what is the database endpoint and all those things will be mentioned. And after that, we'll set up the database, and then you install and start the application. And if you are like doing some like you are actually running the deployed application, so this will be a substep of that. Okay. And you have to like so if you want to like automate the response times, make sure that automate all these processes, then you can take help of CI/CD, and every time the moment you push your code to the remote, so these things will be the CI will automatically create builds and run your test cases and all. And once all the test cases are successfully run, then you can automatic deployment can be initiated, or you can like do the deployment part manually. And post production, so you have to make sure how your production application service is running. So you have to check the health of all your API requests and whatever the requests that are coming from the internet to your application. So for that, you should like monitor how many, so what are the response times, and if there is any increase in latency or the number of errors on the system, so you can set up alerts and you can debug and react to that. And logging is another important thing where it will help you in identifying the response times and also in debugging purposes. Okay. And the other thing is, we are running out of time. So I actually wanted to run 3 applications and explain the microservices setup, but I don't think today it will be possible. Amir, can you take control and brief intro of like how a Node.js application can be created, just for the comparison purposes? Amir, आप हो क्या? Amir, hello. Abhishek?
Yes, Amir is there, but I think.
Hello.
Yes, Amir.
Hello.
Yeah, I could. बोल रहे थे?
Amir, your voice is breaking. It is not stable.
Hello.
Yes, Amir.
Hello.
Amir, I think you have to rejoin. There is, I think, network issue.
Hello.
Yes, Amir. Now you are audible.
ओके ओके या किशोर आप क्या बोल रहे थे? सुनाई नहीं दिया था.
Pankaj?
किशोर हेलो.
Hello.
Yes, Kishore, we can hear you now.
अरे तो कब से ये बंद हो गया? Not
बस
able to
जब
get
से
any-
आमिर को ढूंढ रहे थे.
Okay, ठीक है.
तभी
Okay. आमिर आप कंट्रोल लेके दिखा सकते हो क्या? So the idea is to like if you show how like to generate node app, we'll do a comparison between Rails and a node, the common components.
या श्योर. कंट्रोल लेके या फिर मैं अपने स्क्रीन से करूँ? हाउ इज
हाँ
इट?
आप कर लो स्क्रीन शेयर.
ओके ओके या नेक्स्ट पे कर दूँ? श्योर.
हाँ यस हाँ करो आमिर करो.
कैन यू सी माय स्क्रीन?
Yes.
ओके. Okay, so let's generate a sample project. Okay?
काफी टाइम लगता है क्या?
आपका ही बोलने का वेट था. So Kishore, that is the basic server with a basic input that returns only a string hello world that is auto
उसमें
generated.
okay.
Yeah.
Can you generate MVC and show it?
By MVC.
MVC जैसे अभी मैंने pets का एक MVC
Mm-hmm.
generate करके दिखाया था ना.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. कैसे फंक्शनैलिटी की बात कर रहे हो अभी आप लाइक व्हाट टाइप ऑफ एपीआई
कोई भी एक API बना के फिर आप एक बार कंपैरिजन यहाँ पे दिखा दो कि where do the controllers lie. एक वर्कफ्लो HTTP रिक्वेस्ट का जो जर्नी होता है तो वो Node.js में कैसे वॉक थ्रू करके बता सकते हैं. राजेश ने ये बताया था कि मोस्ट पीपल आर यूजिंग Node.js ओनली. तो एक बार
yeah
HTTP
it's
रिक्वेस्ट का
a Node.js here but it is the extended framework of Node.js. Basically just like Node.js follows the controller architecture, then controller will talk with the service for its business logic. So let's say even if you like want to add two numbers like 2 plus 2, so that logic should reside in the app.service. So like any logic that it returns currently only the string hello world, right? So whatever logic you want to like reside in your business, like it can connect to the database and it can fetch some data. Okay, it can fetch the user's data or the pet's data. So all these logic should be inside the service. So like all your database connectivity and your queries and any operations that you want to perform all will be in the service file. The controller will only be responsible for getting the output that you want to display to the end user. So in this case, like the get API, simple get API, it was only responsible for printing the hello world. Okay, so like that's the I mean that's the basic node architecture. So nest is only the extension of the node. Yeah, that's it. So like here you mentioned in the get this is the controller, this is the decorator actually. So in the decorator we mention the type of the API, so it could be like get, post, patch, or delete or put. And so this is the decorator. Once you mention the decorator, after that you name the function, that is here it is the get hello, and you as it is a TypeScript based, so you like define the type of the return object. So currently it is string. Okay, and now it calls the app service, and inside the app service you define a function that will do your things, like you want to query the database and get some data, or if you want to just perform the 2 plus 2 and return 4. Yeah. Kishore?
हाँ मित्र. तो like
Yeah.
we'll open for questions अभी. Somebody has questions, we'll do it.
Amir, can you create the same thing like Kishore has done for the pets, for the CRUD operation with this?
Oh,
यहाँ पे
okay. During the
scaffold.
pets, I was not in the meet actually.
हाँ तो मैंने
I
क्या
mean,
किया था
what's okay.
कंप्यूटर मैंने स्कैफोल्डिंग करके. तो स्कैफोल्ड क्या करता है रेल्स में, इट विल क्रिएट मॉडल, व्यू, कंट्रोलर, राउट, सब कुछ एक साथ क्रिएट करके देता है. सो यू डोंट हैव टू राइट एवरीथिंग मैन्युअली. तो
Yeah.
हाँ तो लाइक इज इट पॉसिबल टू डू इट इन Node.js?
In you mean your this architecture of the routes and views and modules, all this will be auto created. आप इसकी बात कर रहे
लाइक
हो?
ऑटो क्रिएट करने का तरीका है क्या Node.js में?
नहीं, like Node.js में like I'm not sure.
नहीं, आई
नहीं,
थिंक
क्योंकि हम
नोड में ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कमांड. तो अब हम लोग को ऐसे कस्टम मैन्युअली क्रिएट करना होगा कंट्रोलर.
yes. But particularly in Nest.js आपका वो अवेलेबल है, like there could be अगर आपको ऑनियन आर्किटेक्चर के बारे में पता है APIs का ऑनियन आर्किटेक्चर, उसमें क्या होता है, इवन द सर्विस कम्युनिकेट्स विद अनदर लेयर दैट इज कॉल्ड द डेटा लेयर. सो इन दिस सर्विस में क्या होगा, सर्विस में आपका बस दोज लॉजिक्स विल रिसाइड like what you want to perform, but these logics internally can use the database calls, right? So all these database calls will be inside another layer that is called that will be called like suppose app.data.ts. So any type of DB queries will reside in the data file, and then the service file will use the data file to fetch the data and perform some operations on it. And then the controller, that is all these are auto generated, okay, and the controller will then use the service or return thing to just display to the end user. Yeah. So in Nest it is available. किशोर जिसकी आप बात कर रहे हो.
Okay, ठीक है.
Yeah.
तो वो देखना चाह रहे हैं ना, like somebody wanted to see it, तो एक बार करके देखो.
हाँ मीन्स क्या फंक्शनलिटी सनी सर कौन सी फंक्शनलिटी की बात कर रहे थे? मैं मीटिंग में नहीं था तब. पेट वाला
एक क्रड दिखाया था मैंने. क्रड ऑफ एनी एंटिटी. एक पेट का एक क्रड बनाया था. उसके बाद एक इंडेक्स राउट ओपन हुआ, वन राउट फॉर क्रिएटिंग अ पेट, फिर एडिटिंग अ पेट, डिलीटिंग अ पेट, लाइक दैट.
ओके ओके. So it's in the same voice हम इस पे आ जाएंगे सर्विस वाले फाइल पे, because for creating a pet we have some logic, right? So we'll just name the function like create pet, and for now I am keeping the return type as unknown, and after that there will be the that's it, your create pet API is ready. We need to define the route here actually. So yes, create so the pet is now created and it returns the pet object. किशोर इसको और मॉडिफाई करना है क्या?
क्या चीज?
इसको मॉडिफाई करना है क्या? That's simply
Create is enough, like other operations are simpler only.
Yeah, any type of operation like after post you can have the
This should be
put
enough.
also.
I think we can open for questions now.
Sunny sir,
Is there a way you can create a view?
view मतलब
जैसे कुछ राउट हो, उसमें कुछ व्यू, मतलब जैसे हम लोग का फ्रंट एंड पे कुछ राउट्स होते हैं ना, ये दिखाने के लिए. तो यहाँ पे नोड में जैसे व्यू जेएस यूज होती है ना दिखाने के लिए.
या EJS भी यूज होता है.
हाँ, EJS, तो वैसे कुछ है या
ऐसा कुछ इसमें like I'm not sure, but you can like just create a EJS file and install the EJS library. Yeah, EJS library, and you can put it inside like
type क्या है?
I can create a हाँ किशोर, sorry. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Kishore, you are not audible.
Amir.
I think network issue है.
मेरा वॉइस आ रहा है क्या सनी सर क्लियरली?
हाँ 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 क्लियर है, उनकी नहीं आ रही ईश्वर।
मेरा आवाज आ रहा है क्या?
हाँ अभी है। मे बी आपके साइड नेटवर्क का इशू है, आवाज अभी फिर से गायब।
हाँ yes.
आमिर आप ही कंटिन्यू कर लो, और
okay.
बाकी टीम मेंबर्स और कोई डाउट्स है, कुछ और भी जाना है तो पूछ सकता है अभी।
सनी सर और कुछ करना है क्या फंक्शनैलिटी?
नहीं, आप अगर EJS का एक व्यू बना के जो क्या कहते हैं, जो आपने बनाया है ना पेट का, अभी न्यू एंट्री की है, वो लिस्ट करके एक बार अगर हो जाए जल्दी से तो ठीक है, नहीं तो फिर बस सैंपल दिखा के कि कैसे होता है, कैसे मूव करते हैं, एंट्री पॉइंट कौन से होते हैं, फिर उसके बाद कैसे कंट्रोलर्स पे जाएंगे, वैसे वैसे एक फ्लो।
ओके ओके। इसमें फ्रंट एंड में व्यू कराना है HTML फाइल में?
हाँ हाँ हाँ, व्यू में कैसे बाइंड करेंगे डेटा वगैरह, जो भी हम यहाँ से सर्विस से रिटर्न करेंगे तो वो चीज़।
अच्छा, डेटा बाइंडिंग का यहाँ पे मेरे को नहीं
हाँ
बताया
हाँ
सर
बिल्कुल।
फ्रंट एंड।
हम्म
या आई मीन उसके अलावा एनी अदर फंक्शनैलिटी?
नहीं, बस सिंपल यही है।
ओके। और किसी को कोई डाउट है क्या? और मे बी रिगार्डिंग NestJS और दिस आर्किटेक्चर?
कोई डाउट? आई थिंक सबको आता है सब कुछ।
ठीक है, आप बस वही व्यू एक बाइंड करके बाइंड डेटा बाइंडिंग दिखा था बस, लेकिन टाइम भी काफी होगा।
ऐसा नहीं सर, इसका बाइंडिंग नहीं आता मेरे को NestJS में।
अच्छा अच्छा,
होता भी है कि
ठीक
नहीं आइडिया। फ्रंट एंड से मेरे को दूरी रखो।
है। अरे नहीं है, ठीक है, कोई नहीं। ठीक है, तो फिर किशोर, आपको कुछ कहना है अगर वॉइस आ रही हो तो?
ठीक है। कोई डाउट? अजाज, निकिता, पंकज, अखिलेश, किसी को?
नो सर।
नो सर।
ओके, तो फिर हम बाइंड अप कर सकते हैं सेशन अभी के लिए।
हाँ ठीक है।